The morning sun shone bright over New Haven Colony, casting long shadows across the school playground where children's laughter filled the air. Little Emma Rodriguez kicked a ball to her friend Bobby Chun, while their teacher, Mrs. Linda Davis, watched from the shade of an old oak tree. It was just another peaceful Tuesday on the human colony world, far from Earth, but feeling like home to the 3,000 people who lived there. Jake Morrison sat in his office reviewing supply reports when his communication device buzzed. As the colony administrator, he dealt with dozens of small problems every day: broken water pumps, crop rotation schedules, requests for more teachers. Nothing ever prepared him for what he was about to hear. "Sir, you need to come to the school right now," came the shaky voice of Deputy Sheriff Pete Wilson. "Something terrible has happened." Jake dropped his papers and ran. The school was only 6 blocks from the administration building, but it felt like miles as his boots pounded against the metal walkways. When he arrived, he saw parents crying and teachers standing in shocked silence. Mrs. Davis sat on a bench, her face pale as paper. "What happened here?" Jake asked Wilson, who was trying to comfort a group of crying parents. "They're gone, Jake. 17 kids. They were playing outside during recess, and then they just vanished." Jake looked around the playground. Swings moved gently in the breeze. A ball sat motionless in the dirt. Lunch boxes were scattered on picnic tables, their contents growing warm in the sun. Everything looked normal, except for one thing that made his blood run cold. The children were nowhere to be seen. "I was watching them," Mrs. Davis whispered, her voice barely audible. "I looked away for maybe 10 seconds to help Katie tie her shoe. When I looked back up, they were gone. All of them. Like they never existed." Dr. Lisa Parker arrived 20 minutes later with her scientific equipment. As the colony's chief scientist, an expert on alien life, she was the closest thing they had to someone who might understand what happened. Her scanner beeped and clicked as she walked around the playground. "There's something here," she said, frowning at her readings. "Energy. Signatures I've never seen before. The residual pattern suggests some kind of advanced technology was used." Jake watched her work, his mind racing. New Haven was supposed to be safe. They were far from any known hostile alien territories. The planet had been surveyed for years. Before colonization, there should have been no threats. Could it be pirates, he asked? Human criminals with stolen alien tech? Lisa shook her head. No human technology leaves signatures like this. This is something else entirely. Something we've never encountered before. Captain Ryan Brooks received the emergency call while his ship was patrolling the outer colonies. The UCS Vengeance was one of the newer destroyers in the Colonial Defense Force, fast and well-armed. When the message came through about missing children, Brooks ordered maximum speed to New Haven. The journey took 18 hours. 18 hours. During which Jake Morrison paced his office. Parents demanded answers he didn't have, and Dr. Parker analyzed data that made less sense with every reading. Brooks arrived with 30 Marines, 2 intelligence specialists, and Dr. Karen Mills, an expert in alien psychology. They set up a command post in the school gymnasium and began interviewing everyone who had been at the playground. "Tell me exactly what you saw," Brooks asked Mrs. Davis for the 3rd time. The teacher sat with her hands folded, still in shock but trying to help. The children were playing normally. Emma and Bobby were kicking a ball. Little Tony was on the swings. Sarah and Mike were drawing pictures in the dirt. Then I heard Katie crying because her shoelace was tangled, so I went to help her. When I stood up and looked back, the playground was empty. "How long were you helping Katie?" "Maybe 10 seconds. 15 at most. Not long enough for 17 children to run away and hide." Dr. Mills leaned forward. "Did you hear anything unusual? See any lights or shadows?" Mrs. Davis thought for a moment. "Now that you mention it, there was a sound, like a humming noise. Very quiet. I thought it was just the wind. Dr. Parker looked up from her equipment. Captain, I need to show you something. They walked outside to the playground, where Parker had set up several scanning devices. The readings on her screens showed patterns of energy that pulsed in regular intervals. This residual energy is unlike anything in our databases, she explained. But I've been comparing it to reports from other colonies, and I found something disturbing. She pulled up a holographic display showing a map of human space. Red dots marked dozens of locations across 3 star systems. In the past 6 months, children have disappeared from these colonies. Same pattern every time. No witnesses, no trace, just gone. The local authorities assumed they were isolated incidents or accidents, but when you look at them together, Brooks studied the map. The pattern was clear and terrifying. Someone or something was systematically taking human children from colonies across a wide area. How many total? He asked. Over 200 children, ages 6 to 14. Always taken during daylight hours when they're playing outside. Dr. Mills examined the data with growing alarm. This is organized, planned. Someone is hunting our children. The investigation took a dark turn on the 3rd day, when intelligence. Specialist Mark Rogers intercepted an alien communication signal. The message was heavily encrypted, but their computers managed to decode part of it. What they found made everyone in the command post go silent. The message contained detailed biological information about human children, brain development patterns, genetic markers, physical capabilities, and psychological traits. At the bottom of the data file was something that made Brooks's hands shake with rage. Price listings. They're selling them, Dr. Mills whispered. Someone is kidnapping our children and selling them like animals. Jake Morrison sat down heavily in a chair. Who would do such a thing? The signal originated from a ship using technology we don't recognize, Rogers reported. But I was able to trace the transmission path. It went to a location deep in uncharted space, somewhere in the Kepler void. Brooks had heard of the Kepler void. It was a region of space filled with gravitational anomalies and strange energy. Patterns. Most ships avoided it because the navigation hazards made it nearly impossible to travel through safely. We need to contact Earth Command immediately, Brooks said. This is bigger than one colony. This is an attack on humanity itself. As the communication went out to Earth, Dr. Parker made another discovery. Her analysis of the playground showed traces of exotic matter that could only be produced by incredibly advanced technology. Whatever had taken the children possessed scientific capabilities far beyond current human knowledge. The good news is that the energy patterns suggest the children were transported, not killed, she told the assembled group. They're alive somewhere. The bad news? Jake asked. The bad news is that whoever took them has technology that makes them essentially invisible to our sensors. They can come and go as they please, taking our children whenever they want. That night, Brooks stood on the playground under the stars, thinking about his own daughter back on Earth. She was 8 years old, the same age as several of the missing children from New Haven. The thought of someone taking her, selling her like property, filled him with a cold rage unlike anything he had ever felt. His communication device buzzed with an incoming message. From Earth Command. Admiral Kate Sullivan's voice was calm, but carried an undertone of barely controlled fury. Captain Brooks, you are to maintain position at New Haven and continue your investigation. Additional forces are being mobilized. We will find our children, and we will make whoever took them pay the price. Brooks looked up at the stars, knowing that somewhere out there, 17 children from New Haven were frightened and alone, wondering if anyone was coming to save them. They had no idea that their disappearance had just started the largest military mobilization in human history. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the war room, aboard the battleship UCS Determination, staring at the holographic display that showed the locations of every missing child. The red dots scattered across human space looked like drops of blood against the star map. Each dot represented someone's son or daughter, brother or sister, taken from their families and sold like animals. She had been in the military for 25 years. She had fought pirates, hostile aliens, and space monsters that most people only saw in nightmares. But nothing had ever made her as angry as the report sitting on her desk about the systematic kidnapping of human children. "Tell me what we know," she said to the group of officers assembled around the table. Commander Alex Turner stepped forward. He was the best special operations officer in the fleet, a man who had rescued hostages from impossible situations. His jaw was tight with controlled rage as he spoke. "The aliens call themselves Zephyrians. Our intelligence people finally cracked more of their communications. They've been doing this for hundreds of years, taking children from different species across the galaxy." Captain Nicole Hayes, the fleet's top intelligence officer, activated another display. Images of alien creatures appeared, tall and thin with gray skin and large black eyes. The Zephyrians see themselves as collectors and traders. They capture children from what they call primitive species and sell them to wealthy buyers as pets or curiosities. To them, we're just another primitive race that won't fight back. Admiral Sullivan's hands clenched into fists. They picked the wrong species to mess with. What else do we know? They have a main facility called the Menagerie. Hayes continued. It's where they keep the children before selling them. Our analysis suggests it's located somewhere in the Kepler void, hidden among the gravitational anomalies. Dr. Marcus Webb, the fleet's chief medical officer, looked up from his tablet. I've been studying the biological data they collected on our children. They're particularly interested in human emotional responses and adaptability. They think human children make better pets because we form strong emotional bonds and can adapt to different environments. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the horrible implications of that statement. How many of our children do they have? Sullivan asked. Based on intercepted communications, we estimate over 300 human children in their facility. Some have been there for months. President Maria Rodriguez appeared on the main screen via secure communication from Earth. Her face was set in stone, but her eyes burned with fury. Admiral Sullivan, I'm authorizing Operation Shepherd's Wrath. You have unlimited resources and full authority to bring our children home. Use whatever force is necessary. Thank you, Madam President. What about diplomatic channels? Should we try to negotiate? Rodriguez's expression grew even colder. Admiral, they kidnapped and enslaved our children. There will be no negotiations. There will be no mercy. Find them and destroy them. After the communication ended, Sullivan turned to her staff. Gentlemen and ladies, we're going to war. Commander Turner, I want every Special Forces team we have ready for insertion operations. Captain Hayes, I need detailed intelligence on Zephyrian technology and defenses. Dr. Webb, prepare medical facilities for traumatized children. Turner nodded. Ma'am, the Kepler void is nearly impossible to navigate. Most ships that go in there are never seen again. How do we even reach this menagerie? We'll find a way, Sullivan said grimly. We have to. Back on New Haven, Captain. Brooks received orders to take the UCS Vengeance on a reconnaissance mission. Dr. Parker had been working day and night to understand the Zephyrian technology, and she had made a breakthrough. I've been analyzing the energy signatures from the playground, she told Brooks as they prepared to depart. I think I can track their ships by following the quantum trail they leave behind. How sure are you? Brooks asked. 70%. Maybe 80. It's our best shot at finding where they went. The Vengeance left New Haven orbit with a crew burning for revenge. Every person on the ship knew about the missing children. Many had children of their own back home. The ship's mood was deadly serious as they followed Parker's readings deeper into space. 3 days later, they found their first clue. A small asteroid mining station reported strange ships passing through their system 2 weeks earlier. The miners had hidden when they saw the vessels, but their sensors had recorded everything. The ships were using some kind of cloaking technology. The station manager told Brooks over the communication link, "We only detected them because of the gravitational wake they left behind." Dr. Parker studied the sensor data with growing excitement. "This confirms my theory about their propulsion system. I can track this signature." They followed the trail. For another week, jumping from system to system, always one step behind the Zephyrian ships. At each stop, they found more evidence of the alien presence. A freighter captain who had seen strange lights in space. A colonial patrol that had detected unusual energy readings. A research station that had lost contact with a survey team for several hours. The pattern was clear. The Zephyrians had been operating in human space for months, studying their targets and planning their kidnapping operations with military precision. Admiral Sullivan assembled the largest fleet in human history. 200 warships from across human space converged on the rally point near the edge of Zephyrian space. Battleships, destroyers, carriers, and support vessels filled the void like a metal constellation. Commander Turner briefed the special forces teams aboard the flagship. "Our primary mission is rescue. We get the children out alive. Everything else is secondary." "What about the Zephyrians?" asked Lieutenant Danny Walsh, one of Turner's best operatives. "What about them?" Turner's voice was ice cold. "They chose to prey on children. They made their choice." The intelligence reports painted a grim picture of what they were up against. The menagerie was protected by a massive fleet of Zephyrian warships. The facility itself was a space station the size of a small moon, hidden in the most dangerous region of space known to exist. Captain Hayes stood before a room full of intelligence officers, updating them on the latest information. The Zephyrians have been collecting sentient children from dozens of species for over 1,000 years. They see it as a business, nothing more. The facility processes thousands of children annually. One of the officers raised his hand. "What happens to the children who don't get sold?" Hayes's expression darkened. "We don't know. The communications we've intercepted don't discuss that topic." Dr. Webb prepared the medical teams for what they might find. He had studied reports from other species who had dealt with Zephyrian kidnappings. The children who were rescued often suffered from severe psychological trauma, but humans were known to be more resilient than most species. "We need to be ready for anything," he told his medical staff. "These children have been through experiences no child should ever face. Our job is to bring them back to their families as whole as possible." Admiral Sullivan stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching as the fleet prepared for battle. Reports came in from across human space as more ships joined the armada. Colonial, militias, merchant marine vessels converted to warships, and even private citizens with armed pleasure craft were volunteering for the mission. "Ma'am," her communication officer reported, "we're receiving requests from non-human allies offering to join the fleet." Sullivan nodded. "Tell them we appreciate the offer, but this is a human matter. We'll handle it ourselves." The truth was that humanity wanted to send a message to the galaxy. Anyone who harmed human children would face the full wrath of humanity, and humanity alone. No assistance needed. As the fleet moved toward the Kepler void, Sullivan thought about the children trapped in the alien facility. They were probably scared, confused, and wondering if anyone was coming to save them. They had no idea that the most powerful military force humanity had ever assembled was coming for them, and that their captors had just signed their own death warrant. The human fleet stopped at the edge of the Kepler void, and Admiral Sullivan stared at the swirling mass of twisted space that stretched before them. The void was a graveyard of ships from dozens of species, their broken hulls twisted by gravitational forces that could crush a battleship like an empty can. "Sensor report," she ordered. Lieutenant Jerry Collins looked up from his station with worry in his eyes. "Ma'am, we're detecting massive gravitational distortions throughout the void, energy storms that could disable our ships. Space itself is bent and twisted in there. Our navigation computers can't even plot a safe course." Dr. Parker studied the readings from the science station. The Zephyrians must have found a way through these hazards. Their facility has to be somewhere in the center of the void, using the dangerous conditions as natural protection. Commander Turner joined them on the bridge. "Even if we could get our fleet through, intelligence reports show the menagerie is protected by over 200 Zephyrian warships. Their technology is more advanced than ours. We'd be flying into a massacre." Sullivan looked at the tactical display showing the impossible odds they faced. A normal military commander would have called for reinforcements or looked for another way. But these weren't normal circumstances. "Options?" she asked her staff. Captain Hayes stepped forward. "We've been studying intercepted Zephyrian communications. They have regular viewing events where potential buyers come to inspect the children before auctions. The next one is scheduled in 4 days." "What kind of viewing event?" Turner asked. "Rich. Aliens come to look at the children and decide which ones they want to buy. It's like a twisted pet store. During these events, security is focused on impressing the buyers, not watching for rescue attempts." Dr. Webb looked horrified. "They parade our children in front of buyers like animals?" "That's exactly what they do," Hayes confirmed. "But it might be our only chance to get inside the facility." Turner studied the intelligence reports. "If we could get a small team inside during the viewing event, we might be able to disable their defenses from within. Then the fleet could attack while the children are being evacuated. How would we get inside?" Sullivan asked. Dr. Parker looked up from her calculations. "I've been analyzing captured Zephyrian technology. I think I can modify our cloaking systems to mimic their energy signatures. A small ship might be able to slip through their defenses by pretending to be a buyer's vessel." "That's a huge risk," Turner said. "If they detect us, the infiltration team would be trapped with no way out." Sullivan looked around at her officers. They all knew the odds were terrible. They all knew it was probably a suicide mission. But they also knew that somewhere in that facility, hundreds of human children were waiting to be sold like livestock. "Commander Turner, select your team. Dr. Parker, you're going with them. We need someone who understands their technology." Turner nodded grimly. "I'll take Sergeant Danny Walsh for technical support and Lieutenant Amy Chun as our medic. 4 people should be small enough to avoid detection." Over the next 2 days, they prepared for the impossible mission. Dr. Parker worked around the clock to modify a small courier ship with Zephyrian technology. The ship would have to fool advanced sensors while carrying the infiltration team through the most dangerous region of space in the galaxy. Turner briefed his team on what they knew about the menagerie. "The facility is massive. Thousands of holding areas designed to look like natural environments for different species. The human children are kept in a section that mimics Earth environments." Sergeant Walsh studied the technical specifications. "The central computer system controls everything. If we can plant a virus in their network, we might be able to disable their shields and weapons at the same time." Lieutenant Chun checked her medical supplies. "What condition should we expect the children to be in?" Dr. Webb had been studying reports from other species who had dealt with Zephyrian kidnappings. "Physically, they should be healthy. The Zephyrians take good care of their merchandise. Psychologically, it's going to be much worse. These children have been told they're going to be sold as pets. They've been separated from their families and kept in artificial environments for months. Turner looked at his team. Our primary mission is getting those kids out alive. Everything else is secondary. If we have to choose between stopping the Zephyrians and saving the children, we save the children. The modified courier ship now, called the Ghost, launched from the fleet and headed into the Kepler void. Dr. Parker sat at the navigation station, guiding them through gravitational anomalies that would have torn apart a larger vessel. Energy storm coming up on the starboard. Sighed, she warned, hold on. The ship bucked and twisted as they passed through a region where space itself seemed to be turning inside out. Walsh gripped his seat as sparks flew from overloaded systems. Is this normal? He asked. For the Kepler void? This is actually pretty. Calm, Parker replied. It took them 18 hours to reach the center of the void, following navigation data stolen from Zephyrian ships. When they finally saw their destination, everyone fell silent. The menagerie was a space station the size of a small moon, its surface covered with domes and towers that glowed with artificial light. Hundreds of ships surrounded it, some clearly Zephyrian warships, but others belonging to species Turner didn't recognize. Those must be the buyers, Chun whispered. All these different aliens coming to purchase children. Look at the size of that thing, Walsh said in amazement. How many children are they keeping in there? Parker's sensors detected energy signatures from thousands of life forms inside the station. Based on these readings, I'd estimate at least 10,000 children from dozens of different species. Turner felt sick thinking about it. We're going to need a much bigger rescue operation. They docked at one of the visitor ports. They're modified. Ship successfully fooling the Zephyrian security systems. Turner and his team had disguised themselves to look like representatives of a fictional alien species interested in purchasing human specimens. The interior of the menagerie was even more horrifying than they had imagined. The main corridor was lined with viewing windows that looked into artificial environments containing children from different worlds. Alien buyers walked from window to window, examining the children like they were shopping for pets. A tall Zephyrian approached them. Turner recognized him from intelligence photos as Crickstal, the facility's overseer. Welcome to the menagerie, Crickstal said in accented English. You're here for the human viewing, I assume. They're our most popular items lately. Turner forced himself to smile. Yes, we're very interested in human specimens. We've heard they're particularly adaptable. Oh, they are indeed, Crickstal said proudly. Human children are remarkably resilient. They form emotional bonds quickly, making them excellent companions. And their problem-solving abilities make them quite entertaining. As they walked through the facility, Parker discreetly planted monitoring devices while Walsh mapped the layout on a hidden scanner. The scale of the operation was staggering. Thousands of children from dozens of species, all kept in carefully maintained artificial environments. They finally reached the human section, and Turner's heart nearly stopped. Behind a large viewing window was a perfect replica of a human playground, complete with swings, slides, and a sandbox. Human children of various ages were playing, but their movements seemed forced and unnatural. As you can see, we keep them in familiar environments to maintain their psychological health, Crickstal explained. Damaged merchandise is worth much less. Turner spotted several children from New Haven among the group. Emma Rodriguez was sitting alone on a swing, her face empty of the joy he had seen in pictures from her school file. The auction for this group is tomorrow, Crickstal continued. Bidding starts at 50,000 credits per child, though the younger ones often go for much more. Parker had to grip Turner's arm to keep him from attacking the Zephyrian on the spot. They had to maintain their cover until the rescue operation could begin. We'd like to make arrangements for the auction, Turner managed to say through clenched teeth. Excellent. I'll have you registered as approved bidders. As they completed their reconnaissance, Turner sent a coded message to Admiral Sullivan. The infiltration was successful, but what they had found was worse than anyone had imagined. The menagerie wasn't just holding 300 human children. It was holding over 1,000, collected from colonies across the galaxy over many months. Rescue mission had just become 10 times more complicated. Admiral Sullivan stood on the bridge of the UCS Retribution, watching as her massive fleet moved through the Kepler void. 500 human warships had followed Dr. Parker's navigation data through the twisted space, losing 3 vessels to gravitational storms, but pressing forward with grim determination. "Fleet status report," she ordered. "All ships are in position, Admiral," reported Captain Stephen Blake from the communications station. "The Zephyrian fleet is holding defensive positions around the menagerie. They count 212 enemy vessels." Sullivan studied the tactical display. The Zephyrian ships were arranged in a perfect defensive sphere around their station, confident that no force could break through their lines. They had no idea they were about to face the largest human military force ever assembled. Any word from Commander Turner's team? Last transmission confirmed they're in position inside the facility. Dr. Parker's virus is ready to upload to their central systems. On the menagerie, Turner and his team waited in their assigned quarters for the auction to begin. Through hidden cameras, they could see Zephyrian guards moving the human children to a large central chamber where potential buyers would examine them more closely. "The virus is ready," Walsh whispered, checking his equipment. "Once I activate it, their shields and weapons will go down, but we'll only have minutes before they realize what's happening." Turner watched the children being led through the corridors like animals being taken to market. Some of the younger ones were crying. Others walked with the blank expressions of kids who had given up hope. "Remember, the children are our priority," he told his team. "We get them to the evacuation points, no matter what." Lieutenant Chun had prepared sedatives for the children who might panic during the rescue. "How do we explain to them that help has arrived? Some of these kids have been here for months. They might not trust any adults." "We tell them their parents sent us," Turner said simply. "We tell them they're going home." The auction chamber was a horrifying sight. Hundreds of alien buyers sat in comfortable chairs, while Zephyrian guards brought children onto a raised platform. The buyers examined each child like they were purchasing livestock, checking their teeth, testing their reflexes, and asking questions about their health and intelligence. Krickstow acted as the auctioneer, describing each child's qualities to potential buyers. "This specimen is particularly intelligent," he said, pointing to a 10-year-old boy from the Mars colonies. "Notice the problem-solving abilities and emotional responsiveness." Turner felt his hands shake with rage as he watched the disgusting display. These weren't specimens or merchandise. They were children with names and families and dreams. Each one had parents who were probably crying themselves to sleep every night, wondering if their child was still alive. Admiral Sullivan received the signal from Turner's team. The infiltration was complete, and the virus was ready to deploy. She opened a communication channel to the entire human fleet. "This is Admiral Sullivan to all ships. In 30 seconds, we begin Operation Shepherd's Wrath. Our mission is simple. We rescue our children and destroy every Zephyrian ship in this system. No prisoners, no mercy. They chose to prey on children, and now they face the consequences of that choice." The Zephyrian fleet commander, Admiral Ziktar, watched the human ships approach with confusion. He had dealt with many species over his long career, and most responded to the loss of their children with diplomatic protests and eventual acceptance. Some species even tried to negotiate for the return of their offspring. "Why are there so many human ships?" he asked his tactical officer. "This is a massive overreaction to a simple harvesting operation. Perhaps they don't understand the situation," the officer suggested. "Should we explain that the children are being well cared for and will be sold to good homes? Zektar decided to communicate with the human fleet. Human vessels, this is Admiral Zektar of the Zephyrian Commerce Guild. You are trespassing in restricted space. The specimens you seek are valuable merchandise that has been legally acquired according to galactic commerce laws. Admiral Sullivan's response was broadcast on all frequencies, so every ship in both fleets could hear it. Zephyrian scum, this is Admiral Sullivan of the Human Defense Force. You have kidnapped and enslaved our children. Return them immediately, and we will consider making your deaths quick and painless. Zektar was stunned by the response. In his experience, primitive species were always intimidated by Zephyrian technology and military power. You cannot threaten. U.S. human, we have superior numbers and technology. Withdraw now or face destruction. Your superior numbers? Sullivan laughed coldly. You have 200 ships. We have 500. Your superior technology? Let me show you what happens when you mistake human compassion for weakness. Inside the menagerie, Walsh activated the virus. The computer systems throughout the massive station began shutting down as the malicious code spread through their networks. Emergency lights flickered on as the main power grid failed. Shields are down, Turner reported to the fleet. Weapon systems are offline. Begin the attack. The human fleet opened fire with everything they had. Thousands of missiles and energy. Beams lit up the void as 500 warships unleashed their fury on the Zephyrian defenders. The aliens had never faced anything like the concentrated firepower of an enraged human fleet. Zektar watched in horror as his carefully arranged defensive formation was torn apart in the first 30 seconds of battle. Human ships fought with a ferocity that defied all military logic, pressing attacks that should have been suicidal and somehow succeeding through sheer determination. How are they doing this? He demanded as another Zephyrian cruiser exploded under human fire. Airships shouldn't be able to penetrate our armor. They're not trying to disable our ships, his tactical officer reported in panic. They're trying to destroy them completely. They're not taking any prisoners. On the menagerie, the auction chamber erupted in chaos as the lights went out and alarms began blaring. Alien buyers screamed and ran for the exits while Zephyrian guards tried to maintain order. In the confusion, Turner's team made their move. Now, Turner shouted, and his team burst into the chamber with weapons drawn. The Zephyrian guards were caught completely off guard. They had been focused on controlling the panicking buyers and hadn't expected an attack from inside the facility. Turner's team cut through them with military precision. "Children, listen to me," Turner called out over the chaos. "We're human. Soldiers, your parents sent us to bring you home. Stay calm and follow Lieutenant Chun to safety." The children's reactions were mixed. Some ran toward the soldiers with relief and joy. Others cowered in fear, too traumatized to trust anyone. But when they heard Turner speaking English, when they saw the human faces of their rescuers, hope began to return to their eyes. Emma Rodriguez looked up at Turner with tears streaming down her face. "Are you really here to take us home?" "Yes." "Sweetheart," Turner said gently, "your mom and dad are waiting for you. We're going to get you out of here." Chun worked to calm the children while Walsh set up the evacuation equipment. The plan was to teleport the children directly to the medical ships in the human fleet, but the process would take time they might not have. Outside, the space battle raged with unprecedented fury. The Zephyrian fleet was being systematically destroyed by human forces that fought like demons. Ships that should have retreated when damaged instead pressed forward, ramming enemy vessels when their weapons failed. Captain Brooks led a squadron of destroyers in a direct assault on the menagerie's defensive platforms. "This is for every child you stole," he said as his ship's missiles tore through the station's outer hull. Admiral Sullivan watched the battle with cold satisfaction. The Zephyrians were learning what happened when someone threatened human children. Their advanced technology meant nothing against the pure rage of parents and protectors who would rather die and let the children suffer. "Ma'am," reported her, communications officer, "we're receiving surrender signals from the remaining Zephyrian ships." Sullivan's expression didn't change. "Ignore them. Continue the attack." The battle was no longer about military victory. It was about justice. It was about sending a message to the galaxy that humanity would never forgive those who harmed their children. The last Zephyrian warship exploded in a ball of fire and metal, its death marking the end of their once mighty fleet. Admiral Sullivan watched the debris scatter through the void as her ships continued to patrol the battle zone, making sure no enemy vessel had escaped. "Total enemy casualties?" she asked her tactical officer. "All 212 Zephyrian ships destroyed, Mom. No survivors. Our losses are minimal. 8 ships damaged, 2 destroyed." Sullivan nodded grimly. The Zephyrians had learned the hard way what happened when someone threatened human children. Their superior technology had meant nothing against the fury of 500 human warships fighting for their young. Inside the menagerie, Commander Turner's team had successfully evacuated over 1,000 human children to the medical ships. The massive rescue operation had taken 6 hours, with Dr. Parker's teleportation system working around the clock to transport traumatized children to safety. Lieutenant Chun worked with the medical teams to treat the rescued children. Most were physically healthy, but emotionally damaged by months of captivity. The younger ones clung to the human soldiers, afraid they might disappear again. The older children asked endless questions about their families. "Are my mom and dad okay?" asked Bobby Chun, one of the children from New Haven Colony. "They're fine, son," Turner assured him. "They've been worried sick about you, but they're fine. You'll see them very soon." Emma Rodriguez sat quietly in the medical bay, still wearing the simple clothes the Zephyrians had given her. When Dr. Webb approached to check on her, she looked up with eyes that seemed much older than her 8 years. "The gray aliens said nobody was coming for us," she whispered. "They said our parents didn't want us anymore." Dr. Webb knelt down beside her chair. "Emma, that was a lie. Your parents never stopped looking for you. The whole colony has been searching for you every single day. You're the most wanted little girl in the galaxy." As the medical teams worked, Admiral Sullivan received reports from across human space. The evidence of Zephyrian crimes had been broadcast to every colony and outpost, along with footage of the rescue operation. The response was immediate and overwhelming. President Rodriguez appeared on the communication screen, her face showing a mixture of relief and cold anger. "Admiral, how are our children?" "They're alive and safe, Madam President. All of them. We lost no children in the rescue operation." "And the Zephyrians?" "Their fleet is destroyed. The menagerie is captured. We have dozens of alien buyers in custody, along with complete records of their child trafficking network." Rodriguez nodded slowly. "Admiral, I want you to broadcast our evidence to the Galactic Council. Let every species in the galaxy see what the Zephyrians have been doing. Then I want you to hunt down everyone involved in this network." Captain Hayes had been analyzing the captured data from the menagerie's computers. The information revealed the true scope of the Zephyrian operation. They had been kidnapping children from dozens of species for over 1,000 years, selling them to wealthy collectors across the galaxy. "Admiral," Hayes reported, "we have the locations of 17 other Zephyrian facilities and the names of over 300 buyers. This network spans half the galaxy." Sullivan studied the data with growing determination. "Then we'll visit every facility and every buyer. No one involved in this operation will escape justice." The human fleet split into smaller task forces, each one heading to a different target. Admiral Sullivan led the main force toward the Zephyrian homeworld, while Captain Brooks commanded a group hunting down the alien buyers. The Zephyrian homeworld was called Zephy's Prime, a green and blue planet with cities that floated among the clouds. When the human fleet arrived in their system, they found a world in panic. News of the menagerie's destruction had already reached them. The Zephyrian government sent desperate communications to the human fleet. "Please, Admiral Sullivan, we wish to negotiate. We can offer compensation for any inconvenience." Sullivan's response was broadcast on all frequencies so the entire planet could hear it. "There will be no negotiations. You have systematically kidnapped and enslaved the children of dozens of species for 1,000 years. Your crimes against humanity and the galaxy end today." The Zephyrian military tried to defend their homeworld, but their forces were no match for the human fleet. Orbital defense platforms were destroyed in minutes. The remaining warships were swept aside like toys. Within hours, human forces had complete control of Zephyrian space. But Admiral Sullivan's justice was not about conquest. It was about ensuring this could never happen again. "Attention, people of Zephy's Prime," she broadcast to the planet below. "Your government and military have committed crimes against children that cannot be forgiven. Your civilization built itself on the suffering of innocent children from across the galaxy." The terms Sullivan offered were harsh but fair. The Zephyrian government would be dissolved. Their military would be disbanded. Their technology would be confiscated to prevent future kidnapping operations. The surviving population would be relocated to monitored colonies where they could never again threaten children. Most importantly, every child held in Zephyrian facilities across the galaxy would be returned to their families. Meanwhile, Captain Brooks led hunting expeditions against the alien buyers who had purchased human children. These raids were swift and merciless. Wealthy collectors who had treated human children as pets found their estates surrounded by human marines. On the planet Korvax, Brooks's team raided the palace of a creature called Lord Vexstar, who had purchased 12 human children as entertainment for his guests. The children were found living in golden cages, dressed in costumes like exotic birds. "Please," Vexstar begged as the Marines arrested him, "I treated them well. I fed them expensive food and gave them toys." Brooks looked at the alien with disgust. "You kept children in cages. You're lucky we don't do the same to you." The rescued children from these raids were immediately returned to their families. Transport ships carried them back to their home colonies, where emotional reunions took place under the watchful eyes of human medical teams. Emma Rodriguez ran into her parents' arms at New Haven Spaceport, crying tears of joy and relief. Her mother held her so tightly she could barely breathe, whispering apologies and promises that she would never let anyone take her. Daughter again. Jake Morrison watched the reunions with tears in his eyes. As colony administrator, he had felt responsible for the children's safety. Seeing them home and safe lifted a weight from his shoulders that had been crushing him for months. Dr. Parker worked with other scientists to analyze the Zephyrian technology, making sure humanity would be prepared if anyone else tried to kidnap their children. The knowledge gained from the menagerie would help protect human colonies for generations to come. The trials of captured Zephyrians and alien buyers were broadcast across the galaxy. The evidence presented was overwhelming and horrifying. Species after species came forward to testify about their own children, who had been taken by the trafficking network. The Galactic Council voted unanimously to ban child trafficking and established the Human Protection Pact, with Earth as the enforcement authority. Any species that harmed children would face the full might of the human military. 5 years later, Admiral Sullivan stood in the memorial garden on New Haven Colony. The simple monument bore the names of all the children who had been kidnapped, along with a promise that humanity would never forget and never allow it to happen again. Emma Rodriguez, now 13 years old, placed flowers at the memorial with other survivors of the menagerie. She had grown up to become a leader among her classmates, her experience making her stronger and more determined to protect others. "Admiral," she said, approaching Sullivan after the ceremony, "I want to join the fleet when I'm old enough. I want to make sure no other kids go through what we did." Sullivan smiled and put her hand on the young woman's shoulder. "A galaxy needs people like you, Emma. People who understand that protecting children is the most important job in the universe." The Zephyrian civilization was gone, scattered to monitored colonies where they lived under constant supervision. Their homeworld had been converted into a memorial and research center, studying the effects of their crimes and working to prevent similar tragedies. The galaxy had learned a harsh lesson about humanity. They were a species that could be peaceful and generous with their friends, but absolutely merciless to anyone who threatened their children. The destruction of the Zephyrians became a cautionary tale told on worlds throughout known space. Human. Colonies grew and prospered under the protection of the strongest military force in the galaxy. Children played safely in parks and schools, watched over by parents who knew that the entire human species would fight to protect them. And in the depths of space, human patrol ships continued their endless vigil, carrying a simple message to anyone who might be listening: harm our children and face the consequences.